Allow me to join all of those who spoke before me in welcoming you to this meeting. The NTC has evolved over the years into a very important forum, and I can speak about its evolution because I've been around for quite some time, from the days in the Ministry of Finance, then as President of Guyana, then as opposition leader, and now Vice President. So I've been able to trace the evolution of this conference, its growth and development, but also I've been able to have a longer-term perspective on Amerindian development generally. And it's important sometimes that we trace development because many of you, I look around and I see many new faces, younger people who have rightfully advanced in the leadership positions in their villages and now hold a very important position either as a Toshao or a senior council or the head of a CDC. And we support this transition and we support youth development. We have, in my party, the party that I'm General Secretary of, we've always supported evolution and growth. I myself was young when the Chedi Jagan, Dr. Jagan, appointed me Minister of Finance, and then I became president in my 30s. President Ali is in his 40s. So we have always supported young people taking the reign of leadership. And we come from an extraordinarily proud legacy as the members of the PPP. And I wanted to talk to you a bit because I'm General Secretary of the party, apart from being Vice President. Because a lot of what we've seen today, the progress in the rights of Amerindian people and their development in each of these villages has come out of a philosophy that the People's Progressive Party has always had. A national-oriented philosophy that you see reflected even today. When you look at our party, we're the only multi-ethnic party in the country. We're very strong in all the communities. We're stronger in the Indo-Guyanese communities. We've grown strong in the Amerindian communities, and we're progressively getting stronger in the Afro-Guyanese communities. No other party in this country has that characteristic. We don't use people's race or their religion to campaign. Some parties only campaign on the basis of race, because from the moment our party was established, it was established to fight for independence for this country. And then we had to lead a struggle against the PNC dictatorship for a long period to restore freedom to this country. And we could have only done it by treating all the people of our country equally. And so in opposition, in those long years when we used to go to the villages across our country led by Chedi Jagan, and many of you, where if you talk to the older folks in your community, you will find out about that history. And then in government, we had the unenviable task of transforming Guyana from the early days. And what were the early days? And that's why I talk a bit about evolution. So the last time I came here, I spoke to you about going, I think it was the Letem, and having the PYO. We've now have PYO, that's a youth arm of our party, has been growing after our Congress. We now have 15,000 members. So I was in Letem to have the one for Region 9, and then we went to Region 1, and the other regions, I was in Region 9. And a lot of the young people there who attended, they know instinctively that the PPP has been supportive of their development. But they did not know the past. And so when I spoke to them about the period when I grew up, when to eat bread made from wheat, we could land you in jail because it was illegal, or to have a can of sardines, and just the tin, not even the content. People had to eat the can of sardine and bury it in the ground to avoid being prosecuted, the police locking you up. As a boy, I saw the police come and fetch people's pots away because of what they ate. People could not even believe that it was Guyana that we were talking about, because they don't have any experience. And many of you are young too, and I'm sure you don't have that experience. But that was the state of our country at one stage. No freedom for people, but even more so, less freedom for Amerindian people and people who live in the hinterland. They were totally off the radar of development for the government at that time, because they stayed in power. The APNU, at that time, they were the PNC, APNU, AFC, they were PNC. They stayed in power by rigging elections. And for 28 long years, our country declined. And to the point where we became poorer than Haiti, and half of our population fled Guyana to look for a better fortune elsewhere. So that was the starting point. And so if you trace now, every Toshao were to trace every development that you now benefit from, you will see that they started when the PPP resumed office in '92. From the constitutional guarantee, the Indigenous Peoples Commission, to the 1996 Amerindian Development Act, to the establishment of the NTC, to the establishment of a 1-month celebration for Amerindian culture, to the presidential grants. Every one of those were established by the PPP government when they took office. And so many people today think they were always there. They were not always there. In the early period, that time Chetty Jagan was the president. I was in finance. We didn't have money as a country. We were bankrupt because most of our money went to service debt. That is what the PNC APNU legacy of the 90s were. And we started from scratch. I'm not going to burden you with all of the details today, but I just wanted to say to you, and we can discuss that every one of those things, every single one, from secondary education to scholarships on the coast to all of the laws that you benefit from now, they were established by the PPP governments or successive PPP governments. And that is why it's important that people understand legacy. Because when you go to campaign to, you have all come through elections as Toshaos. I'm sure you would have been very upset if in your villages that the elections were rigged and you could never appoint who you want in your villages. That one man stayed in office as the Toshao or the senior council or the head of the CDC forever, never to be changed. Well, that is how it was for 28 years, because there was no accountability. And then you're young enough, well, you're old enough now to remember the last attempt to steal the elections. It happened right 5 years back by APNU AFC. Once again, although they had been out of power for almost over 2 decades, they came back with the same philosophy. First chance at power, 2020, 5 months after the elections. 5 months after the elections, Irfan Ali was sworn in as president because they hung on to power. They did not want to give up after losing. The whole international community said you lost the elections. They were threatened by sanctions. The United States threatened sanctions on them. The Organization of American States, the Carter Center, the OAS, the Commonwealth, every international group said you lost the election. The people of Guyana said that they would not leave office. That's just 5 years ago. And we're back again now, 5 years hence, because every party has to account for your term in office. As Toshaos, or senior counsels, or head of CDCs, you too, when you face elections the next time, you're not going to be able to rig elections to stay in power. You're going to have to say, elect me on the basis of what I did. What I did in my period as Toshaos or senior counsel. And I'm going to tell you today what we did with our 5 years versus the last 5 years versus what APNU did with their 5 years. The 5 years from 2015 to 2020, you saw they stopped the ALT program, the Amerindian land titling program, stopped it. 2, they fired all of the CSOs. 1,972 persons were fired. They put a value-added tax on travel into the hinterland. In Region 1, they started collecting taxes again after we had discontinued collecting import taxes. The Amerindian, I can go down and list all of the things that happened. I campaigned in that period as leader of the opposition. I visited the communities. There was no support for any of the communities. Education, they took away the grant from the children, the $10,000 grant from the children. They promised in 2015 to double old age pension in 100 days. It didn't happen. You had Malays across Guyana, and particularly in the Amerindian communities. When a minister of the government, the PNC, APNU, AFC government, stood up in Parliament and said that Amerindians are greedy people. In Parliament, Amerindians are greedy people. They want too much land. And if they get more land, they must not benefit from oil money. And that is recorded. You can go back and check it yourself. Just Google it, and you will see who said it. And when the Toshaos came out in 2018 and 2019 and asked them, Granger, at that time, to get his minister to withdraw the statement, they refused to do so. You had a minister of Amerindian Development sitting in Parliament the day when he said that, and not one objection, not a single objection from the APA. Nobody. Guess who objected? The PPP. We were in Parliament. The PPP. We're the ones who objected. And so that is how they treated Amerindian communities, and generally the whole country was declining. We lost output in many areas. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, because I want to tell you basic things what we did with our 5 years in office. So the first is the children grant that they took away. We said we will restore the grant and increase it to $50,000 per child. And this year, in the 5 years, this year, every one of the kids, including Amerindian children, will get $50,000. We said we will, when we go across the countries, the country and the communities, the old solar panels that we had given to the communities on the previous PPP government, that APNU, that we bought a set of them to distribute, and then we lost power in 2015, and they never distributed them, but we said we will return to buy the solar panels. 30,000 solar panels were given out to the communities under this government at the cost of $8.3 million US. That's in the first period. And now we just bought another 7,000, costing $1.9 million US to continue with this. The hubs that we had started were never operationalized. And so today, we now have 140 of those hubs operationalized. We have put internet in many of these communities, the high-speed internet, in over 600 places in hinterland villages. And this will cost, every year, this will cost us now to pay the cost, the monthly cost for these internet facilities will cost about $2.1 million US. We have now, we promised to double old age pension. Now the old age pensioners are receiving $41,000 per month, up from $20,500 per month. We fulfill our promises to the pensioner. So we fulfill our promises to the children. We fulfill our promises to the pensioner. We said we will make university education free. We did that last year. We now decided we're going to pay for CXC and CSEC for 8 subjects for every child in the public and the private sector. So when your children get a scholarship, they can do that. We promised to invest in education. We moved the budget for education from $53 billion to $185 billion. We spent about $16 billion in building schools. I can give you the long list of schools in the hinterland. We're spending more sometimes per school in the hinterland than we're spending on the coast. We're building a school here at Camp Street. It costs about 1/5 of the price of the school that we're building, that we built in Hosororo or Quibana, or we're building in Carasabai. These are some of the best schools in the country being built in Amerindian communities now, because we believe that this is important for us. We also talk about 20,000 scholarships, online scholarships. We have now given 30,000. We just decided that because the biggest thing that was holding back the villages from doing university education right at your village or any level of education was internet. But with the hubs now that we're putting in place, every child, every adult in every Amerindian village in this country can access university education without leaving your village. And that is what we're doing. We kept our promise to the children of the country and to the families in relation to education. We expanded healthcare enormously, but right now we just awarded 3, and we're going to award a 4th contract in the hinterland. In Cato, a hospital for $27 million US. In Moruca, one for $21 million. And in Letem, there is $31 million US. And when you add the $15 million to equip the hospital, each of these hospitals, another $15 million US, it's $124 million US that we're going to be spending in just 3 hospitals I'm talking about. The one in Cameron, soon we are going to move on that one too. So That is in healthcare alone in the hinterland, 124 million US dollars that we are investing in just 3 facilities that would revolutionize the hinterland. That's our legacy in these areas. We have now, when we never promised tractors and trailers when we campaigned, but 216 of them have been delivered to communities across the country at the cost of nearly $1 billion. But that's our legacy. I have a long list of things. We've demarcated 10 villages already, of which several of those villages have already 15 actually have been demarcated. We returned to land titling after they shut it down on the APNU because they said, you mustn't get more land. You must not get more land. They shut it down. And then 15 villages have been demarcated in the 5 years we've been in office. 10 have received their certificate of titles, and we're waiting on Lands and Survey to work with us to ensure the other 5 get it done. We're moving forward. We're moving forward on land titling programs. In these years, we have spent over nearly $500 million on 1,294 hinterland students who have come out now. We're supporting them here. We're spending $13 million US on the Makamaka and the Kumu Fall that would be servicing that is hydropower for the people in these communities in Region 9. We are also building these solar farms to the tune of maybe $15 million US across several villages in the hinterland. When you start adding up all of these things, then you see the size of the investments we're making. The Amerindian Development Fund, that is $16 billion have been spent in the last few years. So let me give you an idea of the comparisons when you talk about party. In 5 years, APNU spent on capital projects in the regions. That is for education, health, agriculture, and administration, run by the region. This is the regional budgets. In 5 years, if you add up from the 5 years in their government, they spent $5.8 billion for all these areas: education, health, agriculture, and administration. So it looks like a reasonable sum. You know, we just gave out a cash grant. In Region 1, 19,598 persons received it. In Region 7, 15,062 persons. In Region 8, 7,775. And in Region 9, 18,159 persons. That means 60,594 persons received a cash grant of $100,000 each. Guess how much that comes up to? $6.5 billion. All the cash grant alone in 1 year that we've given today to these villages, individuals now, is more than all the money that APNU spent on all the capital projects in 5 years. That alone, just one initiative, recently concluded, one initiative is $6.5 billion, and in 5 years, on all the capital works in all these 4 regions for health education, they spent $5.8 billion. That shows the contrast. That shows the contrast between us and them. The contrast is that they took away the $700 million that the CSOs used to earn per year in the communities. Now we have increased it. The people paid by the government of Guyana. From near 2000 in 2014, when close to 2,000, Now it's 5,000 persons through the CSO program or the part-time jobs. Guess how much they're earning per year? Over $2 billion, these 5,000 people who are working for the government in Amerindian communities are earning now. That's the difference. That's the difference. So we can compare records. In fact, we have to compare records. This is the election year. An election would be announced. And what are they going to go into the communities and tell people? Oh, we love you now. We love you now. They didn't show up in 5 years too, the last 5 years. And the 5 years when they were in office, they hardly showed up. But now they're going to surface again and say, we love you again. And they may get a couple of people from the AP and others to go around with them. But the proof of the pudding is in eating. You've seen it. And I haven't even come on to the other things as yet. I'm going to talk about what more we have done. These are just a tip of the iceberg. I'm not done yet. So what are they going to come and say? Oh, we're going to give you more land, or we're going to accelerate the land title. They've already expressed their position already. No new land for you. Because when they're in office, they said it. They said, two, what are we going to do? They can't talk about health care because we're expanding health care. They took away the increased university fee and took away the children grant. So they develop new love for the children again. What are they going to come and talk about? Agriculture? Or taxation? Or rights? They come around and talk, oh, we want to revise the Amerindian Act. Well, you didn't even respect what we put there. How are you going to talk about revision? Because remember when they were trying to undermine the Amerindian Act and redefine who is indigenous. They wanted to redefine who is indigenous by saying ancestral land should be mixed up with Amerindian land. You recall that? So what are they going to say? It's the same players. We can come and talk, and we intend to come and talk to every village and the villagers, and we'd lay out all of what I'm telling you and more, because we have kept faith with people. We've fulfilled our promises, and you too have to do the same when you contest elections. And we want to support you so you can do well, so you can also get re-elected. And we will support you to do that. That's why we're here today. So, I see all sorts of strange people trying to come to the villages. Criminals, everyone else. And so, but they all have to account. You have to account for stewardship. You have to account, you have to say things. You can't go and post a picture of yourself and say, I look nice in the picture, vote for me. It's what you've done. You can't develop overnight newfound love because it's election period. And then after that you disappear again, as they often do. That's one thing. The party that I come from, that I had, has always kept faith with people. In the good times and the bad times, we're there. In opposition, we're there now, and in government, we're there. And this is a testimony to it, because the amount of time you get from the president, from the ministers, etc., it's unprecedented anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, not just in Guyana, listening to people's concerns, etc. So because of the respect we have for the communities and people. So today I hear about FPIC. You might hear that some of people talk a lot about FPIC. We have always sought to work well with the Amerindian organizations because we believe we're all fighting for the same cause. But when some people would blinker their eyes, they turn a blind eye to all the development, They try to undermine initiatives that are good for the people of the country and good for Amerindians. We're going to fight them robustly, like the ones who are trying to block the LCDS. They don't have an alternative, but they every day around the world trying to block the low carbon development funds. So I just wanted to ensure that you're aware of these things. I'm not going to go through everything else here that we have, because I want this to be an interactive session. You hear a lot about oil and gas industry and how much money we have. So new excuse is they say, oh, we didn't have oil money. Well, first of all, they did nothing to develop the oil industry, because all of it started under the PP, under Janet Jagan. Then they signed a bad agreement. In the 5 years, they collected $94 billion more of taxes, but spent very little, including from Amerindian communities. Like, as I said before, in Mabaruma, you didn't have a customs presence, they put one there. So now they say, oh, the country is awash with oil money. So I wanted every Toshao, every senior council here, to leave with this understanding of the budget. In this year's budget, 2025, all the oil money that we collected and are funding projects in the budget is less than our allocations for education, health, roads, and bridges. So we're spending more on education, health, roads, and bridges in this year's budget than we get all the money, oil money in the budget, because oil money only funds 37% of the budget. So everything else, agriculture, security, everything else comes from, not from oil money. Oil money is only 37% of the budget. So when you hear them say this, oh, we are awash with oil money, it's not true. You just have to read the budget documents. You have to read the allocations to education is 185 billion. Health, about 170 billion. And to roads and bridges, maybe 200 and something billion. That's more than all the oil money in the budget. So we're not awash with oil money. There's a key point that they come to these communities and say, oh, we'll give you more money because we have all of this oil money. The fake promises again that they have made. The fake promises that they have made. So let me transition into a few things now. Let's talk a bit about the LCDS. So I mentioned to you already about the struggle that we have had. The LCDS did not fall out the sky. You know the history of it, and I'm not going to go back through the history, the struggles that we've had to put that in place, how we have progressed it with the involvement of the Amerindian communities. We're so pleased that all of the Toshaos have subscribed to this program, have opted into the program. So all of you who have opted into the program, when the APA goes abroad, they say there is no FPIC, free prior informed consent, for this program. But every one of you, before you spend the money, you have to go through a process at your village level. You have to get a buy-in. And then you come here as Toshaos and you present the plan. And then you start spending your money and you decide how you spend your allocation. That's the ultimate respect for the Amerindian communities. They decide, then they use the money. They manage the money themselves. So when they argue and try to block it, with whom did they consult? Did they seek FPIC? Did they go to the villages and say, we don't want you to collect this money because of this, we're going to block it? The answer is no. But they continue with this lie, this fallacy, that you, the Toshaos, are not representing what your people truly want, which that they don't want the money, the LCDS money. And therefore, the international community should really stop this money from coming in. It's money that we earn as a country. And you know how much this has been. We have so far, the first year was $22.7 million US dollars. The second year was $23.27 million US dollars. And this year, it will also, although we have received less this year, we've kept the $23.27 million to be given to the communities. So in the first year, it was 15% as we agreed, 15%. In the second year, it was 26% last year because we received less for that year. And this year, it's over 21%, nearly 22% of the resources that you are getting. Because we did not want, because of lower receipts this year, to change the allocation to the villages. So we're going to, just now, we're going to get into more details about how we approach this matter, and I'm sure we're going to be having some discussions. I want Pradeepa to mention a bit of these issues. The next thing I want to talk about, because we've had some requests for this. So apart from everything else you'll be getting this year, I had a discussion with the president earlier today. So each of these villages will get $3 million to assist people for housing upgrade so that they would be managed by the village councils. So people need help, they will get the help. And then, of course, we will, for the first 2 years, we give you $1 million each per year for the sporting facility, right, to develop a ground. So you will get an additional $1 million this year for that. Just to give you an idea, maybe I should move straight into the discussion because I know you have many other things to talk about. You want to talk about. But yesterday I had an interesting conversation with some of the Toshaos. And so we're spending an enormous sum of money on infrastructure. I mentioned about the education and the health sectors, and those will continue. But what are we going to do on roads? So in Region 9, we are already paving the Lethem Road, part of it. We are constructing all of those concrete bridges going up there. We'll continue to invest in the main corridors, but we have already started in villages to pave some of the roads. At least in 8 communities in that area, we started with the internal work, and that will continue year after year in each of the villages, so that the villages would have their internal roads paved, apart from the main roads that we'll work on. When the main roads are fixed, we are hoping the cost of living, because you can move things or by road, will also come down, because that's an issue, and particularly in some of the villages. In the upper mass, it's a big question because of air. You have to move things in there by air. So, and every time, it seems as though before every NTC, these aircraft operators raise the rate. It seems like they just wait before the NTC to raise the rates again. So we've had some discussions with them, and if they can't be reasonable about these rates, then the government will invest in a commercial arm of the GDF to compete with them so that we can keep these the freight rates down. In fact, we may very well buy 4 more of the aircrafts that we've just bought to do that in the next term in office. They complained, they said to us, well, it's not them. It is the middlemen. Some of these big businesses buy out, they charter the airline, and then they sell a higher rate, they charge a higher freight to other people. This is for some of the communities, particularly that fly goods in, not like Letem so much. Region 9, where a lot of the goods go by transit land. So I want to discuss this afternoon with the Toshaos whether some of the villages can charter the plane too. Instead of the private businessman chartering it, they said they expressed a desire to do that, charter the plane, and then arrange for the people who are using it in the villages to get the lower freight rate. We'll discuss that this afternoon. That's one thing, that's a big concern of ours, because we on the coast, we have sought to tackle cost of living by subsidizing electricity and water and transportation now. So every gallon of gas you buy in Guyana or diesel, there's a $500 to $600 Guyana subsidy for the gas, because we wanted to keep the price down. But in the hinterland, the biggest concern has been the cost of transit, moving people and goods into some communities. So we plan to also upgrade and expand a lot of these airstrips so that bigger aircrafts can go, and then especially in areas they can't go. And then if you have another service, we're going to operate a government-owned service if we can't solve this problem of the gouging, which we believe is a gouging of the market. That it means they're unfairly increasing the rates. In Region 1, it's the same thing, massive investments. So we're talking all the internal roads would be done, like if those of you are from Mabaruma, we're just awarded all the roads in the settlement now. The 3 kilometers around the settlement in Mabaruma, we're building the road to Hosoro is almost completed. We'll take it to Wauna, the main road, and then we'll start doing internal roads in many of the villages. I think Barabina raised the concern yesterday. I told them, don't grade in Barabina, but just do all the concrete roads in Barabina so that they could get their roads. That sort of thing will happen in that sub-district. The Matakai sub-district, we built out in Matakai itself and then continue the concrete road until we get kilometer by kilometer until we get into Matthews Ridge. We'll do the same from Quebana all the way to Moruca every year, build a few kilometers. It costs $1 million US nearly to build 1 kilometer, but we will get it done because this is the commitment of the government. And once the PPP says it, it will be done. That is how we work. Once the PPP says it, it will be done. It takes us a time, but the commitment that I can give you as General Secretary of this party, that it will be done. It takes time because when you add up all of the health expenditure and the education expenditure and housing we're spending $1.5 billion. We're just going to give you some additional help. in the villages itself, but we are also going to be spending money on developing housing schemes in these communities that will get the full support of the government. Ultimately, we have to connect all of the communities in Region 8 to Region 9 through a proper road, and we will continue to allocate contracts to those communities so that they can build the connector roads. Like right now, the road is in a bad shape from Maruka to Quebana. I was told about the shape. And just last night we discussed they have to spend $150 million to upgrade this road. They're going to start now, but we discussed about if the two villages, from the Santa Rosa and Quebana, if they have contractors, we may be able to get them to do a lot of the work, building from both ends, etc. So we're going to discuss that later with the community so that they get some of the work. Right now you've seen what we have done in 5 years. And that's what we are giving stewardship of. Without the PPP in office, the LCDS would have been even not an idea to be discarded by APNU. What did they do in those 5 years in the environmental sector? Granger took $2.5 million US dollars that we left through the old LCDS and developed a green state strategy. They paid UNEP and the GGGI, Green Growth Institute, to come and do it. Very little in this indigenous involvement. And their green state strategy was to plant trees. So Granger flew one time to Mabaruma to plant 2 trees. I always tell this story. From Georgetown to Mabaruma, as though we don't have enough trees in Mabaruma area, right? With 5 aircrafts. Pauline just reminded me, with 5 aircrafts, their mission would be more than anything. And in Bartica, they were planting couple trees. We have now earned billions of dollars. And what has this money done? I want all of them, including the APA, to tell me about, and tell you, look you in your faces, you know how many projects? Nearly 3,000 projects are going to be done by this money in your villages, changing people's lives. You know, the LCDS money has been used. Some people get some help. They get a black tank, they get a piece of road, etc. And by the way, to show some Maruka who raised this issue with me, you don't have to use your LCDS money to build any road or fence or any of the bridges in the area. We will carry those on the regional budget or the national budget. We will deal with those. So don't use your LCDS money for that. Make sure you don't use it for that. So I wanted to just clarify that issue here today. But that's what's happening in these areas. Vibrant communities growing, being educated. Our children in these villages now have a chance to be educated at the highest level, to get degrees without leaving their villages, getting better health care, a CT scan, and right in your own communities. And that's because of the vision of the People's Progressive Party. That is how we work. So I want to, in the next 5 years in office, we're not arrogant, but we believe that we will do well in the elections because we have kept faith with the people. We have fulfilled their promises, and when it's the people of the villages who will speak, the people of the villages who will speak, because they will compare what was and what is. what was and what is. They'll compare that. And you don't need anybody to tell you any differently. Don't need anybody, because they'll see that. They've seen what the alternative has been. And it wasn't such a pretty picture. It wasn't such a pretty picture. But we respect people. We respect even those Toshaos that don't support us. We respect the people and their political freedom in this country. But we will make our case to the villagers directly, too, and through the Toshaos here, many of them. We'll make our case. And we have a good case to make. So, in the next term, you can look forward to further benefits. I've just laid out, I can talk at length about some of the things we plan to do in the next term. We haven't even started talking about that. Definitely increases in continuing in the Amerindian communities, but increase in support for our children. I mentioned healthcare, the elderly, sports, development, job creation. All of these things are high on our agenda. The President mentioned financial literacy, working with communities, and enhancing the rights of our people, security in their homes, etc. But today, I'm going to move back now to the discussion on the LCDS. Have Pradeepa call out the villages, see if you're left out. Now, there are some additional villages that have come up, and they've asked us to include them. Last year, we did that. We included a few villages, I think 6 villages, but they did not change the allocation that we gave to the other villages, because there were smaller communities, and we set aside $100 million to assist them. So we can easily assist the other communities through the allocation of $100 million that we've set aside. So we right now have 242 villages that get allocations through the LCDS, another 6 that benefit through the $100 million facility, and then maybe another 5 that will also get some help through the same 100 million. This is, I just wanted to clarify that. Last year, I also met with some of the Toshaos in the room across here, and they said to me, you know, our allocation is based on a population that is recorded here, but we have higher population. So I said to them last year, work with the ministry and ensure that before the next NTC, using some of the CSOs, to submit your higher population, but it must be verified. I asked the ministry, and they said, has anyone submitted a verified list of the population? And they said, no. So if you get your same allocation, it's your fault. Don't blame me for this, because if you didn't do the work, you know, you're going to get the same. If you verified it, then you have a case, and you submitted it. If you can't come just and tell me, you know, the figure wrong and stuff like that, you're supposed to last year go back, do the survey, verify, and then bring it in. So you probably end up with your same amount of money that you got last year, if it's 24 million or 30-something million or so. So that's one thing I just wanted to let you know very early. Charles also gave me a list of items that, so there's a package for all of the Toshaos, with some sports gear. He will talk about that a little bit later. So every Toshao will get some sports gear to carry in back into the community. So there's something that we get all the time, requests that we get all the time. So you'll get some here, but we can continue working with the villages to ensure that some of them get this. So I'm going to end here, and we can now move into the discussions on various issues that you may want to start raising with me. So I'm very pleased that to get the chance to talk to all of you, and you would see us more in the communities. You would see others too who come around there. You'll see the others come around there. And they would come back with the usual stuff. They are all things. Oh, we hate Amerindians, etc. Thank you very much. So, yes, so